This is a big eye hospital I set up in Egypt. The front building is the high pay side, the back building is the low pay side. The low pay now does 10,000 surgeries a year. They charge maybe 25% of the market rate. And it's actually making more money than the high pay. Here's some of the patients. This is an eye institute that I helped develop in Liaoning province, not far from here in China. They do about 30,000 surgeries a year. And again, about a third are free, a third paid below cost, a third paid above cost, and it's a very successful group. So let me switch gears a little bit and talk about my work developing technology. I was getting many lenses donated throughout the 80s, and in the late 80s, so I got maybe 200,000 intraocular lenses donated for Aravind Eye Hospital and the Nepal Blindness Program. And these lenses helped these programs become self-financing because people would come earlier for surgery before they were economically blind when they could pay something. And then what happened is the lens donations started drying up for a variety of reasons. And I was accused by many of getting these programs addicted to a high-tech fix, which ultimately wasn't sustainable. So I felt really bad, so I looked for solutions. And before I got into public health, I was a carpenter. I used to do construction work, so I knew about construction tools and machine shops. And I started going around to see how intraocular lenses are made. So I visited all the companies that had been donating lenses to see how they were made. And that gave me a context to look at technology, equipment, and people who claimed to be able to help us. And so I raised some money, and Aurolab only cost $300,000 to start up in 1992. And we set up an intraocular lens factory there. And the first year, it looked like we were going to fail because none of us really knew what we were doing. We had a lot of production problems, but fortunately, it got going very well. And it became very successful, mainly through association with Aravind Eye Hospital. Aravind was training more and more people. With affordable intraocular lenses, they were able to expand their training programs to train more people in surgery from all over the world. And those people who got training there became Aurolab customers, and that's how Aurolab grew dramatically. It grew like 35% a year. And today, it makes, last year it sold 2 million lenses. It has about 10% of the global market share. And we were able to lower the price. Our lowest price lens is $2 today. And so after setting up an intraocular lens factory, I also set up a suture factory to make the wound closure needle and thread for ophthalmic products. And that technology came from Germany. It only cost $500,000 to set up that factory. And again, I went out and found a guy with extreme technical competence. He had been the head of R&D for US Surgical. And I don't know if you know the American rock and roll band, the Grateful Dead. Some of you might. Anyway, I found Rolf Stingler, my technology guy, through a Grateful Dead connection. And so we worked together for 2 years, and we set up a suture factory, which has also become quite successful. And you can see we lowered the price dramatically on sutures. So Aurolab is probably the best example of my work where we've proven that it's possible to make something really affordable. Let me show you some pictures. So just so you know, we do everything that other companies do. We have the same equipment. We can sell the lenses in Europe. In the US, we even have FDA approval for our suture product. Everything is done the same, except we sculpt the cost and the margins to ensure pricing for affordability to mainly programs serving poor people. Okay, and so even though it's selling lenses quite low, it has a 42% profit margin, which I think would be enviable for any company to have that profit margin. And so here's some pictures. Let's see, let me get rid of this. This is our suture manufacturing. This is the intraocular lens manufacturing, and again, it's all precision equipment to make these lenses. That's a suture. That's grinding the suture needle. This is the pharmaceutical manufacturing. Here's a very good, interesting slide. In 2007, Oralab sold about 1 million lenses and made $5 million in revenue. That same year, Alcon sold 7 million lenses and made $920 million in revenue. So if you were to multiply Oralab by 7, it would be a $35 million company versus a $920 million company. So it just sort of demonstrates when you sculpt cost and margins to result in affordability, it's possible to make something affordable. It's just, Oralab is about maximizing distribution while being profitable versus maximizing return on investment. In fact, Alcon, which is now owned by Novartis, Novartis bought Alcon for $52 billion, and that was 2 years ago. And last year, Novartis tried to buy Oralab for a lot of money, for multiple hundreds of millions. Why? Because we're their biggest competitor in Asia. But fortunately, we didn't sell. Although, wouldn't it? And by the way, I don't own anything in Oralab, although I wish I did, but I don't. Okay, so the next points I want to make it has to do with pricing, and this is probably the most important point I want to make to you. We use pricing to change the competitive landscape, and that's I found a photo it's a photo of the last samurai in Japan, and I like the thought of a samurai wielding his sword to cut pricing, because that's basically everything that I do is about lowering the price, making something affordable. It's how do you become competitive. If you think about most medical companies, there's, like with suture, there's Ethicon. It has 90% of the global market share. It's a J&J company, $4 billion a year company. I'll be talking about hearing aids. There's 5 companies that have 90% of the market share. If you look at intraocular lenses, it's 3 companies that have like 80% of the market share. So like that, industries consolidate, and then they all charge about the same price, and those prices don't fluctuate that much. There's very little competition. And so everything that I do is about having bringing in competition on price point. So I'm just trying to find where I am on the English side. Okay, so a couple of examples. When Arvind started making lenses, or when Oralab started making lenses in 1992, India was doing like 800,000 cataract surgeries a year. And other companies, mainly new entrants in India, saw what we were doing and decided to make lenses also, as well as other ophthalmic products. And they became our competitors. They actually competed our price down from $10 to less than $2 a lens over the years. And that pricing competition put pressure on the whole market to expand cataract surgery, where the surgical volume in India for cataract went from 800,000 in 92 to over 5 million around 2000. And so that's just sort of an example of how price point changes the competitive landscape in favor of the consumer. Another example is Oral Lab suture production. We beat out a large company, well, Ethicon, on $1 million contract with the government of India. Ethicon claimed that we didn't fulfill the bidding requirements and sued us and the government. They lost that lawsuit, but then they appealed and won. In the meantime, we took it to the Indian Supreme Court and ultimately won that case. But for the next bid, the following year, Ethicon outbid us. They reduced their price for a box of suture from $240 to $23, and they beat us out on that bid. And even though we lost that bid, we still won because we changed the competitive landscape. We used competition to change monopolistic behavior.